and I am going to record this session. As I mentioned, we're going to go over the guidelines. I'm going to show you two different things first, and then we'll get into a PowerPoint. So let me share my screen first. The dietary guidelines for Americans. Hi, Odie, I've got you. The dietary guideline for America is a document that's written every 5 years. And the government hires professionals to write this so that Americans could stay healthy and functional. This new one was literally just released about 1 or 2 weeks ago. So I spent all morning updating my notes and PowerPoints so that I can give you the latest information. Both of these documents that I'm going to show you right now are in Blackboard for you to review. This document is where most nutritionists and instructors like myself will get their information. So it's a reliable source for nutrition information. I do not suggest, nor do I, only use this. So I read this and I take it as facts, but then I also am looking for other sources that will back that up to make sure that what they're saying is correct. So we're always looking for multiple sources that concur on the same information. And if they're reliable sources, and we could get 2, 3, 4, 5 different organizations concurring the same thing, we could pretty much assume that that is fact. Okay? Now you can see that this document is 164 pages long. You do not have to read the whole document. You might want to. And you can see there's different chapters in it, talking about different age groups, the recommendations. This is where a lot of the RDAs will come from as well, like how much sodium or how much cholesterol should we be eating. But that is posted in the learning module that we're doing this week, which let me just take a peek here. We are in learning module 6 today. We were in learning module 5 on Tuesday. So there's your 164-page document, Dietary Guidelines for Americans, 2020 to 2025, just came out. You do or you should read the shortened version. I read the shortened version this morning. It's only 4 pages long, and it gives us 4 main guidelines to follow. You will have to list these 4 guidelines in your discussion question this week, and there's a question on them on your final exam to list those 4 guidelines. So we'll be introduced to them today. You'll write them in your discussion question for this module, and also that will be a final exam question, okay? So much easier to handle 4 pages than 164 pages. Now, I'm going to share with you quick PowerPoint before we break into groups. And the main objectives of the PowerPoint, you should know the 4 dietary guidelines from 2020 to 2025. You should know how to read a food label and ingredient list. And then you should know what my plate is, including the 5 food groups. Okay? Does anybody want me to repeat that? 4 dietary guidelines, 5 food groups, and then how to read a food label and ingredient list. Here we go. Now, don't memorize anything on here. This is last 5 years. They're guidelines from 5 years ago is what I should say. This was on my PowerPoint. This was in the module up until today, but I switched it out because when I was prepping for today, I realized they changed about a week ago. So this is last, we'll say last period for the dietary guidelines. And there was 5 of them, and they look very, very similar to the ones that we're going to be studying. So you can review the old ones here. I left the slide on here for you to see why these guidelines are made. They want Americans to follow a healthy eating pattern, to regularly physically exercise or be active to reduce the risk of chronic diseases and maintain health and function throughout all life stages. So one thing you'll notice on these guidelines is they want people in America to worry about nutrition from birth all the way through older adulthood. Okay, we don't want to just start worrying about it when we get sick or when we're not feeling well, because then it's probably a little bit too late. So here are your 4 dietary guidelines for America from 2020 to 2025. They want us to focus on these 4 things. Now, what was unique about this 5-year period is they have kind of a breakout information on 3 of them. So number 1, follow a healthy dietary pattern at every life stage. So clearly the infancy, toddlerhood, they don't have a choice in what they eat. They're just, eat what they're given. So then it would be the responsibility of their guardian to make sure that we're starting them out correctly. And as you will read in the guidelines, but also we'll cover when we talk about pregnancy and birth, we want to start them on breast milk, obviously, immediately. And then that will continue through 1 year of age, approximately. There's no dead set rule that says, it's no dead guideline that says it has to end at 1 year, or, some people stop before that. But, to try to make it to a year with breast milk, some people want to go longer. That's a personal preference. Around the age of 6 months is when we'll start introducing more, they call it solid food, but I would say watery, mushy food, more resembling to a smoothie than actual chewing food. But clearly, we're going to follow a dietary pattern through childhood, adolescence, adulthood, pregnancy, breastfeeding, and then older adulthood as well. It's never too early or too late to start eating healthy. You may know people that are in a situation where they did not necessarily know about healthy food. There are plenty of people in our society that think food is food and it doesn't matter as long as they're eating something. So we don't want to say, well, it's too late. You're already got diabetes or heart disease. You already got cancer, and there's really no changing that. We can always change little things. And as you'll see in my presentation, I always say focus on the positive, even if you're at first can't get rid of the negative, because eventually they may become to like those positive, healthy foods and then kind of push out some of that bad stuff. All right, number 2, customize and enjoy nutrient-dense food and beverages. Nutrient-dense is the key word here, okay? What that means is we are getting the most nutrients for the fewest amount of calories. So we want those nutrients, the complex carbohydrates, the polyunsaturated fats, healthy protein, all vitamins and minerals, as many as we can get into a food, but with smaller amounts of calories, okay? And then I really like how they put in number 2, have food and beverage choices that reflect your personal preferences, your cultural traditions, and your budgetary considerations. We could debate for an entire class period, is healthy food too expensive? Is healthy food affordable? I bet you could prove either option true. There's plenty of healthy foods that are affordable, and there's some healthy foods that are really expensive. So we have to make sure that what we're suggesting a person could obtain. You might even want to reflect a little bit on the environment they're living in case that they're living in a situation where they can't or don't have a lot of access to healthy foods, and we call those food deserts. There are some things being done to combat those, especially in today's society. People have food insecurity. People may live in a food desert and they don't have access or can't afford the healthy food because of the situation there. We have so many people that maybe are laid off due to COVID, but we do have local food banks, one of which is called the Westchester Food Bank. And don't get caught up in the word Westchester, because they do serve other communities in our district. They serve, I believe, Bellwood, Maywood, Hillside, and one other. But you guys could look that up if need be, to refer that or use yourself. The other thing is with these food deserts, if there's no grocery store within walking distance, there are some companies that will deliver now for either a very small price or some of them free grocery delivery. Let's move on. Focus on meeting food group needs with nutrient-dense foods and beverages and stay within your calorie limits. We will move on to metabolism in a couple weeks, and you'll know what your calorie intake for the day should be. It will be different for all of us. So you want to focus on nutrient-dense foods within the food group. So there's 5 food groups. Here's your first introduction to them today. Vegetables, fruit, grain, dairy, and protein. Those are your 5 food groups. This is on your discussion question for the week. It is on your final exam. It will say something to the effect, list the 5 food groups and list 3 or 5, I can't remember, list some examples of healthy food you eat within each group. So you'll reiterate that on your discussion and then final exam. Okay, and then the last guideline, limit food and beverage higher in added sugar, saturated fat, sodium, and alcohol. So this is what we want to limit. So think of number 3 as what we want to eat, nutrient-dense whole foods. Number 4 is kind of what we want to limit. So that can help you when you're trying to recall these. So less added sugar, less saturated fat. They say less sodium, but remember we have to eat some. If I was to argue with the people who made this, I would say that they should put a small sentence in here. We need to eat some sodium, but don't go over 2,300 milligrams per day. Remember, the limit for individuals who are obese or already have disease is no more than 1,500 milligrams a day. And then finally, alcohol. It does say adults could choose to drink or choose not to drink. And if they do drink, they're recommending no more than moderate alcohol consumption. And what moderate alcohol consumption is, pay attention because this one is on your final, but we'll have a module on alcohol in the future. You should all get this question right. Moderate alcohol consumption is no more than 2 drinks a day for a man, no more than 1 drink a day for a woman. Anything above that really causes health problems. And I'll argue that any amount, even moderate consumption, we have to be cognizant of the fact that it is carcinogenic. So alcohol does cause cancer. There is a link between alcohol consumption and cancer rates. So they have a little sentence here, drinking less is better than drinking more. Okay, and some people should not drink at all. And there's probably a lot of groups we can identify in that sentence there. So here are your 4 guidelines, okay? You can always access this PowerPoint when you're doing your discussion. You can access that shortened version of the dietary guidelines as well, which is where I got this information from. Okay, and then just a couple of characteristics or ideas to think of when you're following those 4 guidelines. Remember, eat healthy through your lifestyle, choose nutrient-dense foods that have less calories but loaded with healthy nutrients. We know what we should eat. We should eat whole foods within the 5 food groups. We should limit sugar, salt, fat, saturated fat. Make sure we're eating an adequate amount of food. Don't think less food is better. We have to eat an adequate amount of food. We have to eat our food to provide us with energy and to get those nutrients our body and brain, all the organs need to function. So when you're counseling people, realize that some people will start to think, well, I'm overweight, I should just stop eating. Okay, that's not going to work. It will backfire. If we shut down their food intake, their metabolism will slow down. It's going to be worse for them. Instead of focusing on what to remove or eat less of, focus on the positive. Focus on what should I eat to provide my body with energy and nutrients. Okay, we have to eat whole foods. Balance a combination of foods and nutrients at proper portion size. So, make sure that we're not overeating or undereating with the portion size. Moderation, not too much, not too little, and variety. All right, don't be eating the same thing every single day. You may have the same food like that you eat maybe for breakfast or a snack, but make sure there is some variety at some point during that week. Okay. All right, I got to take a break. What percentage of people do you think eat out in restaurants at least 1 time per week? All right. Put it in the chat room.
90%.
You could say it out loud or put it in the chat room. I'm going to go back and check here. I got to stop talking for a minute, catch my breath.
80%.
All right, you guys are picking the high numbers. So you got 70. I think someone said 90. And that's really should be this isn't a guideline, but that really should be what we're aiming at, is no more than 1 time per week. And so the answer is 61%. I got that from a poll that was taken. So 6 out of 10 Americans eat dinner out at least once a week in the last 7 days. Then they say 16% of those people eat out 3 or more times per week. And then it's related to age and income. I would definitely say income. I know I don't eat out very often, certainly because the cost of it seems to be very, very high. My kids would like to eat pizza sometimes, and we used to order out in the past, and now that they're getting bigger, it's my husband, myself, and 2 boys. I felt like I was paying like $50 for pizza, and we would get like 2 pizzas. So anyway, I started making them my own, and you would be shocked at how little they cost to make. It is a few cups of flour, a little bit of water, a little bit of yeast, and then whatever toppings you want to put on it. But it's certainly not $50 worth of food. But comment or question?
I was saying, I wonder how that's changed now with the restaurant pickup and delivery due to the pandemic, if that number has increased.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly they're not going in and sitting down to eat, but I know plenty of people that still take it out or drive through, I am not recommending that we say to people, you can never eat out again. I'm your nutrition teacher, and we do. But think about it. Maybe 1 time a week might be a goal. If you do 2, okay. And the days we choose to eat out, the rest of the food that day should be somewhat healthy, to balance that out. Or if we have a pizza out, maybe we have a salad with that. It's everything in moderation to keep your mind and body healthy. Any other comments or questions? Okay, and this just reminds us we've got to move. Our weight is not just caused by genetics or food intake. Our weight is also caused by the calories that we burn. So we want to be regularly physically active. Keep moving, right? And I always say 2 kinds of exercises, right? We know that to control body composition, to get to a normal body composition, we have to eat healthy. We have to do cardio, and we have to do resistance training, some type of weightlifting. Okay. What are you guys doing for cardio right now? Type it in the chat room. Or you could verbally say it, but what do you do for your cardio? Jump roping, boxing, running, work out at the gym. I like to walk with anybody that's willing to walk with me. Shoveling, oh yeah, that's definitely a cardio workout lately, right? Step aerobics, jump rope, boxing, running, walking and moving around. How about sports? I coach baseball, so I get to run with the little kids that I coach. I used to coach volleyball pre-COVID, but we stopped doing that. What else? Basketball, just pick up basketball games. We have a hoop in the alley. I play with my kids' friends. They are, how old are my kids? 10 and 12. But it's so funny. The group of friends will come by and they'll beg me, oh, will you be our quarterback? Will you be the all-time quarterback? Or will you play basketball with us? And it's kind of silly because I think, oh my gosh, what do the other parents think about that? But I love it because it keeps me physically active. Like, you know what the hardest exercise for me right now would be? Playing tag. When's the last time you played tag? Man, does that take out the energy from you. Okay. Let me see. Did I skip something here? Did someone have a comment? I heard another.
Yeah, you asked when the last time I played tag was. I think that was middle school.
Middle school. Well, you know what? If and when, I should say if, right? If and when you guys want to have kids, playing with them will burn a ton of calories. It's a lot harder now than when I was little, but they have fun. It's fun. Okay, so then, the four guidelines, one of them talked about what to reduce in your diet, and one talked about what to incorporate in your diet. So this is kind of a quick summary, but you've seen it before. Reduce the sodium, the saturated fat, the trans fat. We didn't talk too much about cholesterol. Probably about 2 or 3 guideline cycles prior to now, they used to say, don't eat a lot of cholesterol. Because they thought that would raise your blood cholesterol. I believe they removed that, or it's not as important as it used to be. We found out through research that eating cholesterol isn't the primary factor that increases your blood cholesterol. I would be more concerned with total calories, total fat consumption, and inactivity. The more calories, the more fat we eat, the more cholesterol the liver makes. So we're getting high blood cholesterol more from what your liver is making versus eating it. Certainly, we don't want to go overboard. But if you don't have high blood cholesterol, you probably don't have to really count cholesterol intakes in terms of milligrams. Certainly, if you do have high blood cholesterol, you might want to look at that as one of the minor factors that contribute to overall blood cholesterol. And we know lower refined carbohydrates. So you can eat it, but in smaller portions. Try to replace it with whole grains instead. So replace sugar and white flour with more whole grains rather than the refined or processed grains. And then a little bit again about alcohol. So focus on the positive. I would start here with people. We're going to move on to metabolism in a couple of weeks. And when we do that, you're going to be taught and learn the skills to help yourself, but then also to help others. And so we will have a whole day where we'll talk about, if somebody asked you for nutritional advice, what would you do? We would get to know them. We would calculate their metabolism with a math equation. Then we would look at what they're actually eating compared to what the recommended intake should be. We will adjust some differences there and then tell them what to eat, focusing more on that and less on what not to eat, because nobody wants to hear no, not, and never again. They want to hear what can I do and what can I control. So as you can see this list, nothing is new on here for you, is it? You've all seen this before in my class? And I'll just give you time to read this. Nothing fairly new here. Whole foods, natural foods, high fiber. The more fiber, the better. I don't know who wrote this picture. I just found it on the internet this morning, but I thought it was kind of indicative of what we are talking about. Eventually, you and your friends or family will find that these foods are really enjoyable and maybe have less foods on that previous slide. Any questions? That's it for the dietary guidelines. We can move on to food groups if you don't have questions on the guidelines. And they kind of go hand in hand because the food plate, the dietary guidelines, they're made by the same organization. They're made by the government with researchers and educators in nutrition. Hopefully you've seen this before. I was listening to a speech by someone from University of Arizona the other day, and I think I could have gave the speech. She sounded just like I did, but she said we need to be teaching this to kids. We need to be teaching this to grade schools. And maybe you had it in grade school. I just don't think enough. Even if you did have it, you probably needed more. I think my kids have spent maybe 2 days on this topic.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the oils thing, I know in that last list you were showing us, like oils was one. So that doesn't technically count as a group, right?
No, that is not a food group. No,
Okay.
no,
Let me erase that.
no. I believe the guideline for oil is just, use liquid oil rather than a solid saturated fat.
Okay.
And make sure you're using the appropriate amount, like a serving size is a tablespoon. We don't want to pour like a half a cup or a cup of oil in the pan when we're sauteing. We really only need a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a food group. Why that's there is just to say watch your oil intake, but it's not a food group. Okay. So here is your image, and it changed in 2010 from a pyramid. When I was in school, we learned it as a pyramid. Again, probably in 2 days. We should have learned it more, but now it looks like a plate, and I do like this, probably better than the pyramid. Your discussion question this week does say, why is this in the shape it is? And do you like it? Is there anything missing? Do you like it better or, worse than that previous pyramid? But if you look at this, you can see that half your plate is fruit and vegetable. That's the recommendations. Who could tell me the primary macronutrient in fruit and vegetable? What is the primary macronutrient? The one that provides energy? Anybody know? Your options are carbs, protein, or fat. What is it? Somebody say, somebody say what's in the chat room. It is carbs. Vegetables are predominantly complex. Fruit are both complex and simple because the fructose is simple. Grains, what's the primary macronutrient in grains? Carbs, protein, or fat? Things like oats, brown rice. Did you put carbs again? Yep. So now you can see where that about 60% of your diet being carbs comes from. You see how much your plate is carbs? Right? Now, vegetable, fruit, and grain will also have vitamins, minerals. They both will have a tiny bit of protein and a tiny bit of healthy fat, but their majority is carbs. Protein is protein. It will have some vitamins and minerals with it. Depending on what source of protein, you can also get some fat with the protein foods. And then dairy, all three macronutrients. That's why it's cool. But we got to watch it because it does have high calorie content. But dairy has got carbs in it, right? Simple carbs. It's got protein and it's got fat plus vitamins and minerals. And then if you're drinking it, it's got some water too. So there's your food groups. There's your food plate. For assignment, you were to go to, it was this website, to build your personalized plan. You were to build your personalized plan. And you were to either write it out or print it out, how many servings in each food group you were recommended, and then some foods that you eat in that food group. Okay. Well, if you don't know the foods, you could probably write them down now, or just we're going to do it verbally. Someone tell me how many grain servings they were allotted in their food group. What was the number of grains you were given? And it'll say ounces, but that actually means how many servings. What was your numbers? You can, again, write it in the chat room or say it out loud. We're looking for
grains, I got 7 ounces.
Okay, 7. And I see someone put 9. 8. Okay.
I got 6.
6. Okay, so far we're going from a range of 6 through 9. And that's how many servings you should get. A serving size would be 1 slice of bread, a bagel, maybe about the size of your hand, could be half a cup of rice. It could be, it's really a half a cup of oats till you cook it. Then it actually gets, with the water intake, gets to be about 1 cup of oats. The pasta is 1 cup of a serving of pasta. What other grains are you guys eating? We talked about rice. Rice and beans, I believe they're saying a serving size is about a half a cup.
Steel cut oatmeal.
The oatmeal, yeah. When you're making it, I believe the serving size might be about half a cup of dry. The cooked pasta is usually 1 cup, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it really could be. It really could be a lot. I would encourage you not to measure your food every single time you eat, but to get an idea of serving sizes, you clearly were getting that from our food label, or you could research online on this website. Measure it out for about a week or so, and you'll get the idea of what a serving size looks like. For cereal, it's usually about 3/4 to 1 cup. For fruit and vegetable, it's like 1 medium-sized piece. Although berries, it's 1.5 cups. Other types of fruit, really, it's like one cup. And I always laugh. My friend used to cut the fruit up so small so she could shove more in the cup. But what I'm going to tell you guys is fruit and vegetables really never made anyone obese. So if you want to go over because you're hungry, that's the 2 groups you should go over on, is fruit and vegetable. I tell people, eat as many vegetables as you want. If you're hungry and you're eating lunch, dinner, or you need a snack, and you're starving, we would rather we overeat on vegetables. Yeah, fruit if you don't have problems with diabetes or anything. Because what's going to happen really is your brain is going to say, you know what, I've got a lot of fiber from this food. I've got a lot of water content, which is filling. I found my little bit of healthy fat. I found my little bit of protein. I'm full. You can stop eating now. So it's really hard to overeat fruit and vegetable. Okay. How many servings in the veggie group did you guys get from your food plate? We're talking veggies now. Okay.
2 cups.
2 cups. Okay. 3.5. I would round you guys up to 4, those of you that are putting 3.5. So for the veggies, you guys got 2 to 3 cups. Excuse me, 2 to 4 cups. I'm sorry. How about fruit? What's your serving size for fruit? Put it in the chat room, or you can say it. See, it's a little less. The reason it's a little bit less for fruit is because it has the simple carbs in it. Again, but it has fiber, so don't be worried about it. If you don't have diabetes, don't be worried about critiquing whether it's a fruit or vegetable. They're both very good. Speaking of critiquing, what I'm teaching you now in terms of these food groups, let's go back to it, in terms of this My Plate plan, is the American plan. Every country seems to have a different plan. This is the United States of America's plan. One that I like a lot, and I could show you in a moment. If I don't have time, you could look it up in my learning module, is the Mediterranean food plan. I also like something called the DASH diet. It's a food plan. It's not a diet per se. None of these are a diet. My Plate, the Mediterranean, the DASH, they have one for every country you can imagine. I think I have posted Latin America. I've posted some Asian. They have one for all different cultures and groups. I posted many of them in the link in the Blackboard course that says food plans. There's a link there for you to look at them. But they're not diets, they're just guidelines. I actually don't like ours as much as I like the Mediterranean or the DASH. The Mediterranean and the DASH actually have more fruit and vegetable servings, and that's why I like them more. Here they are under food plans. You click on that. I have a ton of them posted. The Mediterranean one, it has 5 servings of fruit, 5 servings of veggies per day. And the DASH diet, it's actually the DASH eating plan. I'm glad they got rid of that word diet. 5, anywhere from, depending on your calorie intake, but 5 servings of fruit and veggies per day. So I like these better because I feel like people are hungry if they're doing a lot of activity and exercising. Some of you work, plus go to school, plus play sports, plus exercise. You're hungry. I really think that we need that higher amount of fruit and vegetables, which is why I like the DASH and the Mediterranean better than ours. So I'm just critiquing it, look at the alternatives and see which one you guys like the best. Go ahead, Talea.
I'm just still, it's interesting to me that like dairy is on a lot of these like plans. And I understand like fruits and vegetables and grains, they all contain vitamins and nutrients and different things that we need. But it's like with dairy, the main things I can see you benefiting from it are, of course, protein, vitamin D, and calcium. But like all those can be found in plant-based things or like other things, and it just seems like dairy in itself also has so many like negative effects. Like I don't understand why dairy is needed in the typical diet.
You are correct. If we look at DASH, you can see it says fat-free or low-fat. I don't even know if I see it really here other than way on, this is the Mediterranean, way up here where it says cheese. It doesn't even say, milk, certainly not ice cream. Here's the Asian. For some reason, the Latin one, I have to kind of reformat that picture. This one's from Harvard, and they actually have water instead of dairy, which is interesting. I'll tell you the answer. The dairy lobbyists give a lot of money to the government to keep dairy on your food plate. Okay. That being said, you guys can post in the chat room, how many servings of dairy were you guys allotted per day? It's not a lot. But, these dairy lobbyists don't want that gone because they'll lose a lot of money. The farmers, a lot of them are corporate farmers now.
3.
Really? Okay. I don't know if it went up. It used to be coming in more at 2. Did anybody get 2 servings? Nobody, huh? I would say that it is still on there, but we have to ensure that the serving size isn't too big. And it's very small. I don't even know if I typed that right. The serving size of dairy is pretty small. So here it's like 1/3 of a cup of cheese, 1 cup of skim milk, 1 cup, this is like a little dairy. This is actually a really cool image. 8 ounces of yogurt. I like this image a lot. I'm going to save it. So this one here, I don't know if I can make it larger. There we go. 1 cup of milk, 1/3 of a cup of cheese. See, it says 1 1/2 ounces of cheese if it was in a block format, which is very small. 8 ounces of yogurt. So they're small serving sizes. I want you guys to remember that when you're kind of thinking about how many servings I should be getting. There's the fruit serving sizes, veggie serving sizes. Here's your whole grains one. 1 slice of bread, 1/2 cup of rice, 1 cup of cereal, 5 crackers.
That is so little.
Yeah, I have to say, if we looked at it individually, we would say, wow, that's pretty small. That's not enough. But when we start combining things together and we say, okay, I'm going to have my snack, I'm going to have 5 crackers, and I'm going to have my little 1 1/2 ounces of cheese. Okay, that's probably not going to fill you up. But if you added a fruit with that or a veggie with that, now you're getting more content. Same thing with dinners, lunches, and breakfast. If you could get a piece of fruit and veggie at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's going to help fill you up. In addition to, your grains, right? So that's where we want a lot of our foods coming from. So don't be afraid to add a fruit and veggie, or if we're going with the DASH plan or the Mediterranean, they're saying 5 fruit, 5 fruit, 5 veggies per day. So you could do 2 servings of each, really, at each meal. Look at the leafy greens, it's 2 cups. 1 baked potato, right? We didn't get to protein, but I did mention this already when we talked about the protein module. It's about the size of your fist is a piece of meat. And 3 ounces of meat is 1 serving. That would be about the size of your fist. They also have 1 egg, half a cup of cooked beans, half an ounce of nuts or seeds, or about the size of your fist for your meats. Okay, so those are your food groups. Your 5 food groups. You know how many servings per each, and some options for you. If you're interested, we won't have time today because I want to do the group assignment, but this choosemyplate.gov is where all the information from the food plate comes from. They have a little quiz there, and they take the quiz. They have, if you go down here, it says explore my food groups. So this is where you could get more options. If you're somebody that says, well, I don't eat a lot of veggies, what are some options for me? Or what are some whole grains? You can click on these and it will definitely give you more information. I feel like any person that is able to read clearly would be able to understand that. And the way I say that is this should be in grade school. I've taught it to kindergarten. I also have taught it to older adults. I used to work at the VA hospital in Maywood, and the vets would come in for a health class with me. And I'm not going to talk to maybe kids or people who are not in the health field the same way I talk to you guys, but I can certainly give them an adequate amount of information. And a lot of what I gave them is from this website. So use that as a tool. If you are helping someone or you're going to have a job in the future where you're helping people with their health, use that as a guideline. Everybody can understand that website. It's a great resource. So moving on, we have to talk about food labels and food ingredient lists. We're going to do this quickly so you have time to talk. There is a new label. It came out a couple of years ago. Doesn't look much different than the food labels you have right now. I am going to show you a video on how to read that. You're going to go in your group and you're going to write down, you know, the name of the product, whatever people have. I want you to discuss what is the serving size, how many calories, how many grams of fat, carbs, and protein. And remember, if we multiply fat by 9 calories per gram, carbs by 4 calories per gram, protein by 4 calories per gram. That's how we get total calories. All right, so you may be saying, where do they get the 230 from? They have to do their little math. That's why we've learned how many calories per gram for all the 3 macronutrients. So you'll do serving size, total calories, the grams of the macronutrients, and how much sodium. All right, that's really what I actually, so, and fiber too, if you guys can remember to talk about fiber. I'll put it in the chat room when we're doing our group work. Here's a quick video.
Can you repeat that serving size?
Serving size? Let me put it in the chat room. Then I won't talk so fast. Let's do this. Serving size. Oops. Calories. Uh-oh, I spelled something wrong. Sodium and fiber are the last 2, okay? Serving size, calories, grams of the 3 macronutrients, and then I want you to do sodium and fiber. All right, let's look at the video.
The new design of the Nutrition Facts label is meant to make it easier for consumers to make informed food choices. One of the most noticeable changes is the calories are now in a larger, bolder type.
That can be helpful when you're trying to identify how many calories are in a product.
When comparing calories and nutrients in different foods, you should check the serving size. However, since how much people eat and drink has changed over the years, the food serving sizes are getting a reality check on the new labels.
It may not be an example example of what one serving is, but it may be more realistic of what someone really is eating, so they can pinpoint exactly how many calories something has.
The new labels are now required to include vitamin D, potassium, and added sugars. When making healthy food choices, Angie says to
look at the calories. They should look at added sugars. You want to be looking for things that have unsaturated fats and staying away from things that have high saturated fats.
For the Mayo Clinic News Network, I'm Vivian Williams.
Okay, quick review of that. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I just don't think people take the time to read it. Okay, so you'll be able to review that. Does anyone have questions on it?
Yeah, that sandwich that Glover was making was horrible.
The sandwich didn't.
I was thinking that.
It's like several pieces of white bread smothered in mayonnaise, and then like, okay, she put cucumber on it, make herself feel good.
It was a strange. I was thinking the same thing when she was making it. I felt like that was a little strange. I thought maybe it was cream cheese, but either way, I still probably wouldn't eat it. So here's your. Go ahead.
She stacked it.
And she's from Mayo Clinic. I was going to say that was a pretty good resource for you guys too. Is Mayo Clinic? I do use that when I'm researching health too. Then I have the ingredient list. So here's your label and here's your ingredient list. I'm going to go through real quick. Ingredient list. Whatever the most is in that product comes first. So then it goes into decreasing or descending quantity. So the most product in Cheerios is whole grain oats. The second highest product is cornstarch, then sugar, then salt, and then it keeps going downward. And some of these things are going to be preservatives or vitamins. So whole grain oat and cornstarch. What do you think? Processed grain or whole grain? Whole grain oats. Whole grain oats is a whole grain because it doesn't have the word flour. Now, cornstarch is suspect to me. Starch to me would mean kind of like, I'm not sure. It could be flour. To me, it doesn't sound like it's bran or germ. So that might be flour. So sometimes they kind of confuse us a bit. And then sugar. But I wanted to show you this cereal and then compare it to Fruit Loops. Corn flour blend is the highest ingredient in this product. Whole grain or processed grain?
Processed.
Right? And look at how many processed grains they have. Corn flour, sugar, wheat flour, whole grain oat flour. So the first four products are all processed carbs. Then they go on to say there's oat fiber. Okay, that's good. Partially hydrogenated oil. What is that?
Processed.
It's right. It's processed fat. It's that trans fat. It is a trans fat. Then, if you see parentheses, that means what makes up the ingredient prior to it. So here, the hydrogenated vegetable oil is made of coconut, soybean, and or cottonseed oil. So they don't want to tell us. But I'm going to tell you right now, the soybean and cottonseed are genetically modified. Their sugar in here may potentially be genetically modified too. Salt, red, number 40, natural flavors, which is a code word for chemicals. We don't want to really tell you what they are. Anytime it says flavoring or natural flavor, it's a chemical. Blue 2, turmeric color, which is probably another chemical. Yellow 6. All right, so now you know what's in Fruit Loops. The other thing I want to caution you on, I couldn't get to this before Valentine's Day, but is chocolate. There is real chocolate in the world, and then there's this stuff that is made up of sugar and hydrogenated oil. Don't get the cheap chocolate, which is basically processed sugar and processed fat. It's very cheap. It will last forever. If you were to go into a store and they would sell a Valentine chocolate heart for $1 and one next to it's a Valentine chocolate heart for $5, the one that's $1 probably is processed. And you're going to be getting this rather than the Hershey's is okay. I feel like I'm a chocolate snob. I love Fannie Mae. I try to eat like no more than one piece after dinner, but I do like my Fannie Mae. That is going to be real cocoa or whatever it's derived from the cocoa bean, plus sugar and probably some dairy. This is all processed. Now, I need you guys to get in your groups. So I'm going to break you into groups, and you are going to go over your ingredient list and your food label. If you can't remember everything I've said, although I'll try to keep the chat room up, I just don't know if you're going to be able to see the chat room. We're going to do 5 groups. Talk about what's on your food label, what's on your ingredient list, and each group should come ready in about 10 or 15 minutes to say what the healthiest food was and why, and then each group has one healthiest food and one not so healthy food, okay?